Canyon, and I was there not too long ago, and I was sitting at Lipon Point. It's one of my favorite spots on the South Rim. It seems like it's not so wildly popular. That's one reason I like to go there, okay? And it was one of those unusually warm winter days, and I was sitting there on the edge, the rock right at the edge had kind of warmed up a bit. I was sitting there looking at patches of snow in the shady spots and feeling the warm sun on the back, and looking at that vast panorama, that incredible view, and thinking in my mind, you know, all those big words, Paleozoic and Mesozoic and Precambrian and schist and igneous and all those kinds of things. Looking at all that, thinking, it's really, the Grand Canyon is like the summary of something that's beautiful, but it's all about decomposition. It's basically a mountain that a river runs into for some unknown reason geologically. Rivers don't do that, but there it does. And it's gradually carrying away the sediment down to a sort of muddy grave downstream. But then it'll get recycled, won't it, eventually? Give it a million years or 100,000 years at least, something like that. And as you look at that and you think this thing is so vast and such an enormous time period, what's a human life? What's Joe sitting there on a rock looking at this in comparison to that, you know? And you can feel very small at times, even though it's beautiful. But there's something else about it, and I'm reminded of that in this gospel today. There's something about it that's beautiful. And I don't say that word for the sake of the rocks. Rocks, as far as I can see, do not have a self-conscious reflectiveness. Maybe you think they do, fine. I don't think they do, okay? But we can look at that, we creatures. I don't know that the little ground squirrel hopping around the edge sees it as beautiful. Maybe they do, but I kind of doubt it. But I know we do. And isn't that an amazing thing? Why does beauty exist? It's absolutely unnecessary. I'm not necessary either, but I exist. And here we all are. So there must be something about us, I think, that is unnecessary and yet beautiful. And we set ourselves in the context of this earth that is so amazing, not just the Grand Canyon, but that's certainly one of the places where we can stop and look at this beautiful earth and say, isn't it just amazing? It's so beautiful, besides being so complicated. And the odds against our planet existing are phenomenally large, yet obviously it's here, but it's not necessary. We're not necessary, but we're loved. Now, let's shift into a bit of scriptural history and theology here. Reflecting on the fact that we're obviously loved instead of necessary, I think actually that's kind of nice, you know. It's necessary to take vitamins, but I don't particularly love them. Okay? We are loved into being. That has something strongly to do with friendship, and that's in the gospel story today. Now, Jesus does a puzzling thing in this gospel. I hope you caught it. When he found out that his friend Lazarus was ill, it doesn't say he got up and went to Bethany. You would think he would, but he doesn't. He parks for 2 days. And he's in the place where John the Baptist was once baptizing, not on the Jordan, as John's gospel tells you, but across the Jordan, in what is the country of Jordan today, east of what's the Sea of Galilee. So that would take him about 2 days to get from there, at least, to Bethany, and then he waited 2 days on top of it. So he's delaying tactic for 4 days. And Martha and Mary notice it when he finally shows up. As I told you before, they do the Jewish woman thing. If you had been here, I'm not saying, but, you know, they both tell him that. Why didn't you move when we told you? Now, you would have to know a little bit of biblical cultural history for that. Here's the reason. It was a common belief at the time of Jesus that the spirit of the dead person stayed around the dead body for about 3 days. Not 4, 3. Jesus wanted to make sure that nobody could say, the spirit of it was still hanging around when he got there. He waited for 4 days. They couldn't claim that. There was no elaborate trick here. So he's making sure that people see that in the loving relationship of the Father and the Son, there is this life-giving power and friendship that extends to us, a person, a human like Lazarus. It's all in Martha and Mary. We're friends. All of us are called to be friends of God. And in that vast sense of time that we can consider about this beautiful earth, that vast sense of time, God makes friends with us, not with igneous rock. Makes friends with us. And that love, that friendship, is not limited by the grave. It goes beyond it. And so Jesus demonstrates that very clearly when he does this stupendous miracle, whatever it was scientifically, I have no idea, but he calls this person forth from the dead. He says Lazarus is dead, and he calls him forth from that, his friend. It's worth reflecting on this now, as we're getting closer to Holy Week, that the power of the Lord extends beyond what we know of this life. It extends beyond the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands, the millions of years that we can read about in geology. It goes beyond all that. And that's something that's beautiful. And we have that gift too. We can extend friendship. Something beautiful. I hope that this week, in Lent, you can reflect on how you're loved by God, how you're called to be a friend of God. And you too can make that alive, help that be alive for someone else.